You're watching JRQ TV. Be sure to like and subscribe. All right, here we are, the Reinvented Life Show, Real Talk, Episode 2. My name is John Robert Quinn, the guy who builds talk shows coast to coast, hanging out here with Pamela Chanel David. How are you?
I am good, everyone. Wow, what a week we're coming off of. Man, there was ever a time that people needed to reinvent their lives. It's right now. Oh
yeah,
goodness.
it's been terrifying. And
Wow.
The whole point of all of this really is to continue to inspire people, show people that, there is positive in this world, there is greatness in this world, and there's a lot of people that are actually out there rooting for you. We're fighting for you every single day. So let's talk about reinventing in uncertain times. Talk to me.
Yeah, it is, like I said, never been a better time for people to think about having to not just embrace change, but deal with the change that's being thrown at us every second of the day right now. My guest today,
but it's not right now. It's always though. It's just it's just different right now.
Right.
Small business owners or employees or moms and dads were all thrown with all this stuff all the time. It's just a little different today than it was a month ago.
Exactly. Well, I think the biggest difference, and my guests today on this show are really helpful in this too, is how does one shift what they're doing because of what you're talking about? The schools are shut down. Communities, we haven't even begun to see how different they're going to be. And so how does one continue to be resourceful during this time is really what we're talking about. My guests today that are on this show are going to be talking about that very thing, is how do people still put themselves out there into the world in not just a productive way, but in a compassionate way. I think the world today needs more compassion. We're dealing with challenges.
I put a post on Facebook that says, why can't we just have a pandemic where it makes people kind?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so true though.
And so that's what this really is all about, is how does one really embrace all of this change that's going on, to go back to values that have been forgotten in many cases, their family, their friends, their tribes, their communities. This is all something that as people work more virtually, as people are not walking into the office every day and tapping each other's shoulders, as they're isolating voluntarily or involuntarily, how does that affect how one can still get out there and be compassionate and help their neighbors?
It's so crazy. If you watch the Democratic, whatever they call it, the debates or whatever, you saw Biden and Bernie Sanders like fist bumping. Like, when do you see presidential elects?
Yeah, and this isn't necessarily, I don't want this to be political.
No, but I mean, the point is that we've got a society now where we're almost afraid to touch each other. We've come into this society where we're distancing ourselves more and more from people. And, we're going to cyber, we're going to Zoom, we're going to YouTube videos, we're going to get our message. We're having to adapt. And that's reinventing. When you're talking about a small business owner, let's say you're a realtor and you want to go show a home and you've got to drive around with somebody in your car that you don't know. You don't know whether or not they're sick. You don't know whether or not they've got this, that, or the other thing. How do you show them these homes? You can do that virtually now. We have the technologies to do those things. That's adapting. And that's reinventing your brand or reinventing yourself. The same thing with our kids going to school. The teacher's in the classroom, the kids are at home, the kids are watching their television sets, and they're getting their lessons done at home. And that is going to actually dramatically change. That in itself will dramatically change how schools are done from today moving forward forever. Because the classroom sizes have gotten so big that it's become unhealthy for the kids because they're not learning, they're not getting the attention that they need. But now we can have one teacher talking to 1,000 kids rather than one teacher sitting in a room with 30 or 40 or 50 kids. It's different than when we were in school.
Well, exactly right. And that's why it's so important. Like my guests today, they help people, literally help people, and that compassion we were talking about in how to survive virtually today in the world, how to market yourself, how to brand yourself. And maybe it's with your traditional business, or maybe it's just something that one is passionate about in life. And these ladies are extraordinary about helping the average person, the small business, the solopreneur, whatever you want to call it. Can't wait to have this with them, this discussion, because I think it helps people in thinking about things in a new way. And that's really at the core of it.
But that's what reinvention is.
Yeah.
I mean, you are thinking differently.
Yeah.
I was an employee and I wanted to create change in my life.
Yeah.
And one day I'm listening to Rob, Arnie, and Don, and Rob Williams talks about where he was going to school and somebody told him to read this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he said it changed his entire life. And the irony is 10 years later, well, I bought the book and I read the book. 10 years later, my life had completely changed. And the irony is, at that moment, I realized, wow, I'm in radio, which is where I had got the message to go and get the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I literally followed the same path. And it was changing the way I think, changing the way I do things. And here we are now at JRQ TV. And we got away from radio because radio essentially is dying, and streaming television is now the future, which is why we're building JRQ TV. Again, reinventing, but changing the way you think.
Yeah, and exactly. And we've talked about this all the time. Your actions and your thoughts are what become habits. Those habits become routines. Those routines become lifestyles and then embedded into who you are. So making that shift isn't always the easiest. But these ladies have literally built this entire business around people, not just reinventing, but taking pieces of their life they may be passionate about and helping it inspire others. So,
all right, well, let's get into that clip.
Well, here we are. Wow. Today on our show, not only are we blessed with one, but we have two guests. I cannot wait for you all to hear from them. I have on here with me today Wendy Barr. She is the CEO of Barcode Branding. There she is. And she is extraordinary. How, especially when we're talking about today, you know, really moving our lives forward, moving our business forward in uncertain times. There's no two better than these individuals that I'm going to introduce you to today. Wendy, as I mentioned, she's CEO of Barcode Branding. She comes from a 10-year background with the arts in Pittsburgh, so we're very excited about that. A long, long history of digital marketing. And again, I think what impresses me most about Wendy is her ability to really help her customers, help her community, if you will, really move forward in their lives. So excited to introduce you to Wendy. And then I also have on here, we are so blessed, the other half of Barcode Branding, Sara Davenport. Sara is the COO of Barcode Branding, and together these two ladies are just extraordinary. So first and foremost, I want to thank you both for being on today's show, The Reinvented Life. And it's called Real Talk for a reason, because we're going to really have a very candid discussion here today about reinventing your life, but particularly in these uncertain times, how does one do that? So I'm going to start, Wendy, with you. Again, CEO of your company, really puts a lot of responsibility on your shoulder to help your clients sort of mitigate through this, uncharted terrain, if you will. And so welcome, Wendy, to the show. And, my first question for you is, you have such an extraordinary background in digital arts and graphic work and marketing. And how did you go about pulling all this together to create Barcode Branding?
Well, thanks for having us, Pamela. We're really thrilled to be here. Let me just say that. And speaking of extraordinary, that would really identify who you are as a brand and as a human being. So thank you for thinking of us. Yeah, you know, when I started barcode branding, I thought to myself, yeah, I was worried that I wasn't, that I didn't still have that entrepreneurial spirit, because I had been teaching at the college level for many years. And yes, things change, times change, and they're constantly in flux. And I was laid off. And while I thought, oh, okay, I'm okay, I'll just be a college professor through retirement. Yeah, this will serve me just fine. The fact of the matter is the universe had a different idea for me, that I wasn't maybe living up to my potential, and maybe I needed to have a challenge put in front of me. So started thinking about what I was going to do next. I must have put out, I don't know, 100 applications to find a job as a college professor, and realized at that point that that wasn't going to happen. I really needed to think, to be more forward thinking. What's really going to not only push me forward and provide me with an income, but how can I affect change in the world? And so when I decided I was going to start barcode branding, I called up my favorite friend, Sara Davenport. And Sara can tell you the story of how we met and how we came together as business partners so effectively. But I called her up and I said, hey, Sara, so I don't know what you're doing these days. It's been years since we worked together, but I'm going to start this company. It's going to be called Barcode Branding, and we're going to do branding and marketing. And she said, I'm in. And I said, I haven't even finished. Let me finish. And yeah, she said, you had me at hello. So yeah, it was kismet for sure. And decided to launch Barcode Branding. But here's the thing. I hired a coach, a business coach, because I had been out of the business realm for a while. And I thought, okay, let's just see what's new and exciting, and how can I make this happen quickly? And the first thing she said to me is, Wendy, you've been a college professor teaching graphic design, packaging design, marketing for more than 15 years? I said, yeah, I have, I had a successful business prior to that, but yeah, somehow I ended up in this lane. And she said, you have your finger on the pulse of the creative community. Go get them. And I went, oh, so I do. So I recruited cream of the crop students, the ones that really impressed me and had graduated and moved on to successful careers. Other faculty members that had been laid off at the same time I was, to come in and help me build Barcode Branding. So that was kind of the onset of Barcode Branding. That's kind of how it came to fruition.
How beautiful, you know, and I think if there's a message in there for everyone, again, of how to reinvent. Change and transformation is something we talk a lot about, but really at the root of the term reinvention is the word invent. And this invent is all about being creative. And I think so many times in people's lives today, the necessities of life, the everyday part of our lives and part of our business, take precedent to really taking a step back and figuring out, how are you going to reinvent? What creative pulse is already within your life that you can actually then bring to life? And so I love what you say, and so much of the work we do here at the Reinvented Life is following your passions, and how to take that incredible career you had in teaching and as a professor, and find the creative side of that, and then be in purpose to share that with other people. So I absolutely love that transition. And we'll get back and ask you another question in a moment. But patiently waiting here is Sara Davenport. I'm absolutely thrilled as the CEO of Barcode Branding and partnered with Wendy in this endeavor. What would you say from your background that you took that was the most important piece of who you are, brought it up to current times, made it relevant, made this partnership happen, and now bring this to the world from your vantage point?
Oh, yeah, certainly. And I'd say that the short answer to that is that Wendy and I are always laughing about the fact that she brings the pictures and I bring the words. So my background is in broadcast communications and human behavior. And so I've done authoring, co-authoring, editing, and copywriting. I worked in radio for several years, literally wrote commercials, things like that. So when we came together, and Wendy and I had a successful business previously, we ran a very successful women's networking organization in Denver. So what was wonderful when she called me, the reason I was able to say I'm in is because we already had crossed that bridge of knowing that we really enjoyed working together as business partners. And in fact, like she said, kismet, we joke again that oftentimes we finish each other's sentences, and it makes it very, very easy to be in partnership. Now, something your audience may not know is that actually at this time, Wendy is headquartered in California and I am in Colorado. So thank goodness for Zoom, because it puts us together every day in a way that makes it feel like she's right here, and we are able to work in that capacity. So to answer your question about what I did, I pulled from my expertise. I also pulled from my fond recollections of previous working engagements with Wendy, and it was an easy yes to say, yeah, this is a good time to take the best of the bits and pieces, gather them together, and see what we can make that's bigger than either one of us could do by ourselves.
Oh, I just absolutely love that. And you bring up two such important, relevant concepts to today. You know, again, in these uncertain times, what I love about what you said is that you are working on the strengths. And the first and foremost that really, really struck me is oftentimes one has a limiting belief. That all they can do is do it in their local area, whether that be a job, a partnership, giving back, and what have you. And what I love what you talk about with video conferencing today, with all of the tools that are so readily available and finally easy for us non-technical people to use. What I love is you pointed out geography, that really people can be anywhere. A big part of reinvention is this concept of relevancy, and why people can survive so well during uncertain times is that they can draw upon new technology. They can draw upon things that as people are either isolating more or working more from home or changing the nature of what people are doing. It's times like this where people can come together virtually, that feeling of isolation goes away almost instantly. And so I love what you're talking about is on a daily basis, you're able to come together from California and Colorado and bring your creativity and your skills together and producing something that I know is extraordinary for your customers. So I love that. I also love the fact that you talked about a prior relationship that the two of you had, a business relationship and obviously a friendship over the years. And so the decision to work together was very instant, as you and Wendy both said. And I think for our viewers, that is a really important thing as well, because really our worth today is in who are we connected with? Who are we collaborating with? Who shares that same energy with us? Like the three of us do on this call. And what I want to do is emphasize to our viewers that we all have those tribes. We all have those networks of people that just share our energy. And so I can't thank you enough for both of those points. And I love that she brings the pictures, you bring the words. You have been able to really form that partnership to do what you're both just extraordinarily good at doing, was getting this great work that people are out there doing into the world. And really, the term marketing can seem overwhelming to people, but just to put it in layman's terms, really just sharing it out there with people, it's just awesome. So Wendy, my question to you is barcode branding, and I know we could talk an hour here and our time is limited on this show, but in a nutshell, with barcode branding, when you first engage with a customer, what's a little bit of the process you go through so people know, well, how does one share their idea out into the world? And it may just be a small business, or it may be even a solopreneur, someone that's really up to something great on their own. Yet they're competing, if you will, in the world because the messaging is so great out there with major companies. And I know this is a stumbling block for people. So what do you do when you first meet a customer that helps show them that process?
Well, thanks for asking, Pamela. And truly, that's what branding is all about. Branding is all about being visible, finding a way to cut through the noise and get the recognition that you deserve for the services that you provide. At Barcode Branding, we believe that business and brand development are inseparable, that you can't have one without the other. And oftentimes, people will come to us and, yeah, I need a logo. And we do our very best to explain to them that you need so much more than a logo. You need a brand. And that, and then the process is finding out more about their business foundation, which includes really zooming in on their mission statement, their vision statement, their programs, products, and services, their core brand values, who their target market is. Now, these are hard questions. And if you haven't taken the time to really sit down and establish a foundation for your business, it's almost impossible to identify your brand, because again, they're inseparable. So that's where we start. We start with the business foundation. We do our very best to understand the client's business foundation, their future goals, their competition. We want to understand the whole big picture. And then from there, we can talk about developing graphics and a visual identity that really identifies who they are in the marketplace and differentiates them from everyone else. So we start with the business foundation, and then we move into the graphics and visual identity. And we never do one without the other, and we never do the graphics before we understand their business model.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for that clarification, because I know this is a mystery to a lot of folks. So the work you do, not only is it extraordinary work, but it makes it, what I'm hearing from you is very simple. In any times, let alone uncertain times, people want simple. People want to be able to understand just how that could work. And so along those lines, Sara, what would you say as businesses start utilizing your service? They're getting out there in the world, they're getting more and more of their own customer and their own traction. You said you're the word lady, so I'm going to you for this question. How do you take what maybe they have spent years and years developing in their background, and now, as we talked about earlier, putting their passion into creating this brand. How do you go through the process, finding what those right words are and getting from your customer just the exact message that they want to share?
A beautiful question, and probably the very level 2 part of branding. A lot of people, again, make the misunderstanding that branding is exclusively your visuals, and a brand is much more comprehensive than that. One thing we're always sharing, and it goes into what you're asking, is that you need to understand that when you're creating that message that you're referring to, the key truth is that you don't own the perception. Your consumer, your end user owns the perception of your brand. And one of the ways we help brands differentiate in a marketplace is to help them find their, what we call their brand voice. And we use a lot, again, I said my background's in human behavior. So we use a lot of understanding around marketing psychology, and specifically using brand archetyping. And in some instances, when you're a solopreneur and you are your brand, that personality of your brand can be nearly identical to your own personality, making it very easy for you to speak in your own brand voice. When you're dealing with a somewhat larger company, you may have a team of people who need to share a voice that represents the brand that may not be their personal identity. And that's where we get into the depth of what it means to create a brand that speaks for itself and has its own brand voice, how to communicate that effectively in-house to your teams and externally to your ideal client.
Oh, wow. That is fantastic. I mean, I want to rename the show now, you know, it's real talk, and that's what we're doing. But wow, brand voice, that is really phenomenal. That just speaks to so much of what we're up to here is helping, you know, our clients, viewers, listeners, find out what is their voice and use it in a way that maybe they never saw possible. You know, Wendy mentioned earlier, 15 years as a professor. And for some people, that would really be the end game. I mean, that's a phenomenal career. Yet she took from that and all the experience and the arts that she had, brought that together, and is now servicing and in purpose to people in a new way. And so I love how you've both found your voice and how you help your customers to find their brand voice. I absolutely love that. I know we're going to have to wrap up the show. I would love to be a lot longer because I love what we're talking about. But just in short, since this really is real talk in the reinvented life, again, I'll start with Wendy here. Wendy, what would be one of the most important things in your own life, whether this be in your business life or your personal life or just in general to your lifestyle, that you think the most important thing about change is? Because change is a very scary subject for people. We talk about embracing change. We talk about the 5 steps that are involved with change within the reinvented life all the time. But just so our viewers and our listeners could understand, what would be your most important tip about change and how to bring that into one's life?
I would say innovation. It's impossible to remain the same, and millionaires and billionaires are created based on the premise of constantly embracing change, reinventing, being innovative, and finding new ways to be forward thinking about the future. I just had this conversation yesterday, actually with my husband, and I was explaining to him that the people that are, or the businesses that are really going to catapult in this time of change are the businesses that have the ability to think ahead. What's going to happen after this? What's going to happen after that? then what's going to happen? Now, of course, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know the future, but what we can do is just thinking from a human behavior standpoint, or thinking about buying patterns, etc. How do we remain ahead of the curve? So instead of just trying to survive right now and scrambling, going, oh my God, I have to survive, thinking about how to thrive in the future, and thinking about what's coming. And I just wanted to share this one thing with you. Years and years ago, I read this article, and this article is something that stayed with me for my entire life. It was an article that said, it was about what were the commonalities of people that lived beyond 100 years old. And they did this study. I must have been in my 20s when I read this article, but it stayed with me. And they did this study, and they researched people that would live, that were living beyond 100 years old. And the only one thing they could find in common amongst these hundreds of thousands of people that they researched was just this one thing. And that was that they were able to embrace change and go with the flow.
Wow.
That was the only thing that they found. So these were people that just kind of rolled with changes, went with the flow, and said, okay, so change is in my realm, I'm going to embrace it. And that was the only thing that they found. And that, like I said, it stayed with me. And I feel like I am one of those people that embraces change. I don't get too nervous about change. Matter of fact, I'm excited about change. What's coming?
Phenomenal. Again, unrehearsed and just so raw and so real, but wow, that is fantastic. Thank you for that wonderful contribution. And Sara, for you, what would your one sort of tip again be for people maybe nervous or not knowing the direction to go right now on that embracing that change?
Yeah, I think, as is often the case, Wendy and I are so naturally balancing. I completely agree with her. The future excites me, and I love being on the cutting edge of what may be happening. But I was asked, as I was developing a professional career after raising our son, and my husband and I had a son that had some challenges health-wise. Anyway, so as I stepped back into the career world, someone asked me, how did you get here? And I said, I found a way to find myself in every situation. And when I could find myself in the moment, I could adapt and then be the best me I could be in that moment. So I would say that's how I handle change, is to accept the reality around me, find myself in it, and then adapt and support the world that needs me right here, right now.
Incredible. Incredible. Of course, you're the word lady. This is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Find yourself, and this is actually, if we need to, which we do, a perfect ending to our segment here, which is finding yourself, and oftentimes in the process of reinvention. I frequently have the discussion that even though we're embracing change to get there, finding oneself, finding who authentically you are, where you are in the picture is so important. And it's not about necessarily changing who you are, but really going back to that authentic reality. So incredible. What a powerhouse team you both are. And it's incredible. Wendy, before we sign off, how would people find you? What is your website, or what is the best way to find you?
So our website is barcodebranding.com, and Wendy Barr, barcode is spelled with 2 R's. So it's barcodebranding.com with 2 R's. And we have a really wonderful business mastery program for businesses that are trying to establish that business foundation. You can find that on our goods page. I'm happy to jump on a strategy call with anyone. We're very approachable here at Barcode Branding. We have a brand review that's online that if you're just wanting to do a health check, you can pop into our brand review. I think it's barcodebranding.com/brand review. So there's lots of ways to get in touch with us, find us, work with us, strategize with us. But like I said, we're very approachable. We're really all about helping catapult small business success.
Fantastic. Well, I can't thank you both enough. You have a wonderful day and lots of excitement and lots of innovation. So be well. Thank you.
All right, welcome back. Wow, that was absolutely phenomenal. A lot of great information.
Yeah. You know, both Wendy and Sara, what amazes me about them, and you heard it yourself, is how they are able to capitalize on what people are passionate about. And that is so important today in staying relevant, because our businesses are changing. We talked earlier on in the show about even the way that education is delivered. How our children are learning is going to set the tone for years and years and years to come. Our businesses are changing. You know, if you don't have an online presence, it's like not having a phone number.
Gosh, I tell people that all the time.
And so that's what they do. They help the average person, the solopreneur, the small business, literally come to life on the web, and it's like having a phone number.
Sounds like something I do, doesn't it?
It just coincides exactly what you're doing and what we're up to here. So what I love about this is everything is shifting for people. It's changing for people. It's more difficult in many ways for people.
Yeah, but this is the rubber band.
Hope,
this is the rubber band.
Exactly.
We're talking about people not going to work. We're talking about people being at home, kids not able to go to school. We're talking about people not sure whether or not they're going to have enough food to eat. We're talking about real serious stuff right now.
Yeah.
But you know what's actually happening is we're getting stronger. We're stretching that rubber band, like you say, and then what's going to happen is as soon as you compress that rubber band, it's not going to go back to its original form, but you've expanded and you've gotten better, you've gotten stronger. That's what we're talking about here.
And I think if there's anything overall to learn when you're reinventing in uncertain times like we are doing, it's having the hope of knowing where to turn and how to go and to still feel in purpose, because the human spirit is all about feeling that purpose, feeling that desire to keep going. And when that hope's not there, it's difficult. So that's what this show is all about.
Just remember, everything that you do in life, quit using this, start using this.
It's all from your heart.
It's all from your heart. If you want to start a business, don't look at the numbers, feel it. If it feels right, move forward and evaluate with this. Look at the data, but don't sit here and go, well, I should, or should I do this, or should. If you're not feeling it in your heart, don't do it. If you want to start a business, do it with your heart. When you go and you do something with your kids, are you thinking, well, should I take the kids to the park or shouldn't I? Should I, if I'm thinking about it, should I? Feel it with your heart. Let's go to the park and hang out. You know, in everything that you do in life, do it with your heart. And you'll be surprised how far life takes you, because your heart's never wrong. I'm telling you, your heart's never wrong.
Right. Holding on to that hope and feeling it, as you perfectly described, with your heart is really what it's all about. It's embracing that. And there's challenges right now that people never envisioned in their lifetime.
I know.
They're going to be facing. But when you can do it with hope, and when you can do it with the knowing that you put these pieces in place and you start, as you say, feeling it with your heart and helping your neighbors again in new ways and being there for your family more.
I cannot believe what's happening out there. I cannot believe the humanity that I'm seeing. The people coming together. You look at Italy, they're in song. Did you see this?
I saw that.
It's unbelievable. I'm seeing people in line at the grocery store with 4 or 5 things of toilet paper and a guy with none and saying, here's some toilet paper.
Absolutely.
I'm seeing humanity. And you know, as we've had, over the last 10, 12 years, we've put dividers, we've put labels on everything, and I'm seeing people come together as one again. And that to me is, I think, that the greatest thing about what's happening right now is I'm seeing people forget about all the labels, and actually now focusing on people being human again, which is amazing.
You know, I want to thank my guests. I want to thank my audience. I want to thank you because you have...
Because I challenge you?
Yeah, you challenge me. But no, you have the tools that people need today to feel that hope again. And so you help bring this this reinvention and this change to life. And you know, it's so necessary today more than ever. So thank you.
What's very interesting about your product, I know you wanted to close with that, and I'm taking that away from you because you've said something very, very important, is the tools that I have. The tools that I have are because other people have helped change me. And the tools that I have are helping you change you, reinvent you. And by helping you reinvent you, you're helping reinvent other people. And the irony is you working with me on GRQ TV and building this into a wonderful TV network is, again, part of my reinvention process. Because I was the radio king, now I'm becoming like this TV thing, right?
Yeah.
And we're doing TV differently. People go, what channel are you on? It's not like that, right? TV's different than it's ever been, and you're helping me as I help you. And again, so you know, that's what we're all doing here. Yeah. That's all we're doing.
And no, I didn't necessarily want to end with that, but I just want to leave people with that feeling of exactly what you're describing. There's hopes, there's shifts. You know, align with people that support what you're doing. Align with people that are sharing that same energy, because then no matter what is going on, all the adverse things that are going on out there, you can still have that energy and productive community. So, and
it's not what you know, it's who you know, and you're surrounding yourself with good people. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And we'll see you guys next week.
You're watching JRQ TV. Be sure to like and subscribe.